Our next speaker and our last speaker, I've saved the best for last. Dr. Glen Swartwout from Hawaii. He's also a sponsor, so check out his products. Dr. Glen is an amazing healer. He's got a really cool presentation today. So Dr. Glen, I'm going to step back and everybody enjoy the presentation.
Aloha. Bring you some warmth for those who need it. Going to try to bring hopefully some new perspectives for your healing journey for many of you. Some certainly for, I think, everyone, because some are things that I've figured out myself in my own journey. When I was still a student doctor, I found out that I had glaucoma and that if I followed Western medicine alone, I would be likely blind by the age of 50. Well, I'm 65 and I still have my vision, and because I did my own research and figured out what were the underlying causes and how can I heal the causes of glaucoma. Since then, I've been helping thousands of other people heal not only blinding eye diseases, but other challenging health issues, many of them considered irreversible, but we have clients who are reversing their, at least some of the vision that they've lost over the years with glaucoma, vision loss with macular degeneration, also considered the leading cause of irreversible blindness in our culture. One man had lost his driver's license. He was a construction guy in his 70s and really needed to be able to drive his truck to carry big beams to build barns and things. And in just 1 month on the program that we developed for him, including our macular wellness formula that's for the macular health, he got his driver's license back in 1 month. So it's generally considered a degenerative condition that doesn't reverse, but we see more people at least stopping the progression and many who actually get some of their vision back. So let's go ahead and take a look. The number one perspective that I'm going to go into deepest today, and there's quite a few of them in the system that we use called accelerated self-healing. So feel free to get in touch with me and we can take you further on this journey. But this is a very unique one that, well, I'd studied some Oriental medicine when I was at naturopathic school, and one of the things that we didn't learn, but I learned looking into the researching the literature. Oriental medicine is a thousands of year old observation that has an awful lot of wisdom in it. And so it fills in some gaps that we have in the Western science, where we look at things that we can measure and control. We can't really measure and control the spirit and the consciousness so well. So that kind of gets left out in the cold in our Western medicine often. Well, they describe a unique cycle of the development of consciousness and spiritual growth in Oriental medicine. It's different than the cycle, the other cycles that you more commonly hear about of construction and destruction of energies. So this is more about the information, the consciousness. And these are representing the 5 elements. We're going to start in the upper left here with the metal element at the lungs, where we breathe in the spirit in the air. Now, spirit means breath, right? So makes sense in Oriental medicine. I'm going to show you the anatomy that I relate to this. And this is my unique contribution, figuring out there's actually this cycle represented in our anatomy if you're looking at the body from the front. The right lung is the largest lung because the left lung has to make room for the heart. So perfect placement here of the metal element, which is lung and large intestine, which represents our breath, and also our senses are related to the large intestine meridian. And we kind of breathe in sensory information. In fact, if you visualize that, if you imagine that when you're working with the breath, working with embodiment of your senses, feeling yourself into your body, bringing presence of your spirit into the body, you're bringing the spirit minerals, I call them. Some people, I learned about it through modern alchemy. They call 𝗚𝗹𝗲𝗍, M-state minerals, white powder gold, many different terms in different cultures. Like every culture has a term for it. In ancient Egyptian, it's called, the translation is what is it? It's actually a word. It's hard to pronounce. There's no vowels in it. But we go from the breath, breathing in the senses, breathing in the spirit minerals in the air, and from there it goes to the heart. So there's the lung. We're actually, our senses, our vision, if you think about it, in Western science, they say the sky is inside the skull. Why? Because the visual cortex is here in the back of the head, but that's not where we see. We see in space. We see the stars in the sky. How does that get projected out there? There's no explanation in Western science until now. I think I have the explanation that because the spirit body is embodied in the bio-body suit when we're having an in-body experience, not when we're having an out-of-body or near-death experience, which I've experienced. But when those spirit minerals are here in the brain, they're taking that information, the image that's being formed in the visual cortex, and they're literally projecting it through what we call the cyclopean eye. It's a single spirit eye that's located between the two eyes, closer to the dominant eye. And with vision therapy, like the work that Dr. Sam Byrne does, we can take a person who's dominant is mainly one eye functioning. There might be amblyopia in the other eye, a lazy eye, a low vision in that eye. And as we bring that person into a more two-eyed way of functioning, that cyclopean eye where they project from is going to move toward the center of the material body. But the cyclopean eye is a spirit eye where we see from. Literally, the mathematics of visual perception can be mapped out and centered on that spot in the spirit body. So these spirit minerals have quantum function. They function, the spirit is like one quantum. Even though it's macroscopic, it's the size of the body, it functions as though it's a single thing, like a single atom, but it's not a thing like an atom. It has quantum dynamic function. It can be in two places at once. So it can be in the visual cortex and at the same time be projected through the spirit eye into space and literally create that image that we see is not separate from us. It's part of us. Everything we experience is part of us. We are universal beings. We're trans-spatial. We're also trans-temporal, which we'll talk about when we get to the heart next. So yeah, the heart. So those spirit minerals are single or diatomic minerals. We're not 100% sure on everything. Some of the physics comes out that some of them, like gold, might have to be two atoms in order to be in that spirit state. There's some uncertainty in the theory because these are things that are so hard to measure. The man who patented the spirit minerals, he called 𝗚𝗹𝗲𝗿, he had to find in the literature, hidden in Russian literature, there was a patent on the system to be able to actually measure these minerals, and he did that. For example, he measured tissue from a pig's brain and found that 5% of the dry weight was rhodium and iridium in a state that, in a normal laboratory, it would be a white powder that didn't burn. They'd say it's unknown. It's unknown. But it's under a different atmosphere and burning for 3 minutes instead of 15 seconds. He could actually identify, oh, there's rhodium and iridium. That's how we see and how we hear. Rhodium and iridium in the brain. It's a new perspective that sheds a lot of light on how we heal, on some of the miraculous and marvelous aspects of healing, how the spirit and the consciousness is so powerful and so important in healing, like the placebo and the nocebo effect, how that's as powerful as any material medicine effect. So the heart is our most powerful electromagnetic field in the body. So when these single or diatomic spirit minerals come from the lung into the blood, into the left side of the heart, they're exposed to our heart field, which if we're in a state of coherence with heart-centered emotions, positive emotions like hope and gratitude, love and joy, these are coherent emotions that transcend space and time. They don't dissipate with distance or time. They're coherent, like the spirit body. Those spirit minerals that start out like oxygen, they're diatomic when they're in the Earth's realm. They now become they go from from paramagnetic in the Earth's field, or they're like paralleling the Earth's magnetic field. They become diamagnetic, opposed to the imposition of external forces of electromagnetism, which is what living fields like plants and animals have. They're diamagnetic. So they volunteer to become part of us if we're in this positive state. If our body's in an alkaline state, as it should be, the venous blood should be a little bit alkaline. If we're in that alkaline state, we're able to incorporate them into our body, because the water in the body, when it's in a structured hexagonal alkaline state, what I call living water, that living water is a coherent zone. And the 𝗚𝗲𝗿, the spirit minerals, are drawn to, and in general, Bose-Einstein condensates, the sort of the hard laboratory physics side of the equation, of understanding it. The Bose-Einstein condensates are drawn to interfaces. They're drawn to coherence zones where there's some structure to the space. They're what structure? Space. Like plasma in the universe, in the cosmic sense, that's named after the plasma in the blood, plasma in the cytoplasm of the cells, because it moves like living things. It moves according to energy, electromagnetism. It's a cellular plasma, cosmically is cellular in structure. And the plasma physicists don't really understand yet that what's at those interfaces of the cellular structure is the condensates. They're magnetoelectric, where the plasma is electromagnetic. And so they have this reciprocal function in living things. Like the universe is actually a living thing, the more we look at it. You look at the structure of it, it's structured like mycelia of a fungus. Our nerve cells, our blood vessels, in live blood cell analysis, they see that it's not structured by our DNA, it's structured by the mycelial shapes of our symbiotic organisms in the fungal realm, which we're descended from, and which fungal spores are the only thing that can really survive, or most easily survive, space travel between celestial bodies. So life is a cosmic thing. And another time we'll go into more of the evidence on that in the electric universe hypothesis that starts to understand how and why that happens. But we'll move forward. So the heart is the center of the chakra system too. What this looking at this in a deep way has shown me is there's a relationship between the Ayurvedic view of the chakras, the light body, and the Chinese view of the meridians, which are the electrical body. So the heart is the center of that light body chakra system, and each of the chakras is connected to the 5 elements of Oriental medicine, and those each have their, what we would call in physics, Birkeland currents, the electrical currents that flow on the meridians. And like in space, they can move and change. They're programmable according to the needs of the body to meet our healing needs, to meet our life stresses. So the earth element is the next in our cycle. You can see it's actually in how I map it out, it's located on the left abdomen, where we have the organs of the earth element, the spleen, the pancreas, the stomach. And it's associated with the throat chakra in this mapping. There's many ways to map things, but this is an interesting one. I hope you'll find that in the throat chakra, we take in our material food stuff. We're eating light, the carbon-carbon bonds of organic chemistry of plants and the animals that eat them, and we eat either or both of those. The carbon-carbon bonds are energy held between carbon atoms. That's what? It's sunlight. It's sunlight. There's some species of bacteria that live in fumaroles and deep in the ocean and get their energy from sulfur. That's like less than 1% of the life energy. Most of it's from sunlight. And when we release that carbon bond energy in our mitochondria, we're releasing energy from sunlight. So that the material comes in, what comes out of the throat chakra is our voice, is energy and communication, information, consciousness. So we're a refining process of taking the matter and turning it into spirit. And that's what this life is. The earth is the womb of heaven, we like to say from a spiritual perspective. We're here developing and growing our spirit body. And that's the purpose of healing. Purpose of healing is not to take an aspirin and suppress the headache so you can go back to work and be a cog in the wheel of commerce. Actually, studies on aspirin show that it increases future headaches. So it's just suppressing. Antihistamines suppress the symptoms of allergy, which is an overflow from the kidneys not being able to clear the blood. And so it's releasing that overflow here. When we suppress it, we just push it deeper in, and we wind up with a higher risk for cancer in the sinuses and even in the brain. So throat chakra mentioned, and interesting contemplation here too, where we're digesting the material of the organic things that we take in. We're breaking it apart into its components like amino acids. Why? So we can then reform those into linear sequences we call proteins. And those fold up into three-dimensional shapes, but they're constructed as linear sequences. And what comes out is our linear sequential communication of language, structuring words into sentences. So I find that fascinating that we go from the heart, where we're taking these single atoms or diatoms of spirit and making them our own, connecting them to our field. And then in the earth element, the thinking element in terms of Chinese medicine, we think by structuring those words, those concepts into sequences. And then we move to the water element associated with the kidneys. Willpower and memory and free will and choice and taking action is here, where we go from a linear thinking to a divergence, which means we're defining now a plane. 3 points define a plane. And the spirit minerals in alchemy, they observe that they form into two-dimensional planes, structures the same shape as our silicone chips in computers, which is a simulation of the two-dimensional chips in the human body, like our cell membrane, that's a home to this 𝗚𝗹𝗲𝗿, this consciousness, holy grail of consciousness. When we look at anesthesia, which obviously temporarily, hopefully disrupts consciousness, the stronger the anesthetic, the stronger is its affinity for the cell membrane, for the lipid phase of being dissolved in the membrane. And they carry, most of them, they carry toxic halogens, the chlorine and especially fluoride components that are very disruptive, very damaging to the coherence. So temporarily the cell membrane is out of coherence, it's in disorder, which means the spirit minerals are not there. And so the connections that form the shape of the cell that determine memory can be lost if the shape doesn't come back to the normal shape. A lot of people who go through general anesthesia, that's one of the big risks. You can die, but you can also lose parts of your personality, parts of your memory. So I associate that water element with the power chakra. Again, the will is associated with that in Chinese medicine. And we're at a two-dimensional plane, and we get to a three-dimensional level of structuring of space. Vision is in humans, it's our dominant sense. 2/3 of all the electrical nerve current stimulating the brain comes through the two optic nerves. Everything else is equivalent to one optic nerve in electrical power. The retina of the eye is a photovoltaic panel. It's a solar panel. It actually is the strongest electrical dipole on a tissue level. We know the cell membrane is an incredibly powerful electrical dipole. That's how it works. And so the retina is the strongest tissue dipole, and then it sends its negative electron energy to the brain, powers up the brain. And so the brain has the strongest negative electrical charge of any organ in the body. So we've gone from tissue level in the retina to the organ level, it's the brain. And then the strongest positive pole, the opposite polarity, is the liver. in Oriental medicine, they say the liver meridian travels right up the optic nerve. We see this often when we're analyzing the energetics of the body and the communication of the body and what's happening in healing these blinding eye diseases. And we'll see, oh, no wonder it's the liver is stressed, and it's stressing the liver meridian, and that's affecting the optic nerve. So when we correct the liver, now the optic nerve works better and can repair and heal. So the wood element is associated with vision. Of course, the eye is the outlet of the wood element in Oriental medicine, but also with creativity. Vision is not only our external vision, but it's our ability to visualize, our imagination, our creativity. And it's also the beginning of transcendence, of transformation. So the chakra, we have two chakras that associate with the wood element, and that's, of course, the third eye with vision, and also the second chakra, which is our other navigational plane of navigating the social sphere, social realm. And so there's the transpersonal aspect of beginning to understand the perspective of other people, having compassion, having insight into others, having empathy, is the ability to see or to imagine from another perspective. So it's a transcendent point of view, just like an out-of-body experience when we think, how is this other person seeing things? And that's part of vision, part of visualization and imagination. So we've completed the cycle, but it's not a one-time thing, and it's not a linear thing. All of these are happening at one time if we're fully functional spirits. We're seeing, we're feeling, we're thinking, we're taking action strategically, imagining what's should be happening, and watching our senses to see if what we think should be happening is happening. And so all of that can be happening at once. And that's, again, with the field of vision therapy, that's how I got involved in optometry through my dad's work, how that works, where we'll train people to be able to, not just to see something, but to get meaning out of it, which would be the heart chakra, to extract meaning from what we see, to be able to language that, to think about what we see, to name it and describe what we see in our vision, to take action, to use our imagination, visualization, and to get feedback in this cycle to be able to improve and regulate performance in the world. So let's move on to just very briefly introduce you to a couple of other perspectives that I find particularly both fascinating and helpful in navigating the healing process, especially with chronic degenerative conditions that are considered irreversible. That, well, my conclusion is, how do we know it's irreversible unless we try? Because I've seen so many things, sometimes even when we weren't trying. A woman in her 80s, what we were trying to do with her was keep her out of surgery, eye surgery. She had glaucoma and cataracts both, and trying to keep her vision stable so she didn't have to do surgery, because she already had one surgery and she had a reaction to that surgery of inflammation in both eyes. So doing the surgery didn't help. It damaged both eyes. She didn't want to go through that again, obviously. And in the process of doing that, she hadn't even mentioned her heart condition, which she had a mitral valve prolapse for 30 years. She's in her 80s. Her heart doctor, she had the same doctor for 30 years here on the island. He was Harvard trained. And when he tested her after we had worked together for a few years and said, if you hadn't been my patient this whole 30 years, I would tell you that you were misdiagnosed in the beginning because you don't have a mitral valve prolapse. And we don't see that heal, but it did. The fact is, the body is always healing. It's always doing the best it can to heal, but it runs into plenty of roadblocks, whether it's stressors that demand more from the body, more nutrients, more energy, more the right information to do that healing, or just deficiencies. We're nature deficient. We've removed ourselves from nature. We walk around, we've got our Nikes on, and that separates us from the Schumann resonance field, even if we're walking on grass. And we're driving in cars that have rubber tires, and we're in buildings that isolate us, and then we're adding all the electromagnetic stresses that we can possibly create. 5G on top of it all, and it's going to be everywhere with satellites. So we have impediments to healing, and what winds up happening is over the years we accumulate things that we couldn't fully heal. It's damage. It's like little scars on different levels, you know, energetic and chemical and psycho-emotional in the brain. And with German new medicine, they can actually see those on MRIs. But they can all be healed, but we have to heal them in the body's way. The Band-Aid doesn't heal a cut. Again, the aspirin doesn't heal a headache. The body is always prioritizing a few things that it's trying energetically to heal right now. And we can measure that in the meridian system. That's how I got started with this. And now, after years of doing that, I can feel that in a client at a distance. I've got lots of videos that explain more about that. I don't have time to go into it right now, but it's always fascinating to me. The one time fairly early in the process, I was testing a business partner's family member who was about 15 miles away at home, not feeling too well, actually had chronic autoimmune condition. We had been able to improve her vision, which had gone downhill with the steroid treatments, developing cataracts at an early age, young child. Anyway, I was looking for the stress pattern that resonated with her. Had to go dig into boxes from Germany and, you know, feel, oh, there's something in this box. Oh, it's in this column, and here it is, and translate it from German. And it was a vial, a homeopathic sample of menstrual blood. Well, she was premenstrual, pre-puberty. So it's like, I told him, it doesn't have to make sense. It's just, this is resonating. It's represent the stressor. We'll find a remedy that specifically brings her back into a coherent state, and that'll be healing. That's all we have to know. He got home that day, and his wife met him at the door and said, "You won't believe this, but she's spotting." Well, she was on some medications that were messing with her hormonal system. It was like a one-time that day thing that happened, but blew my mind. And for 40 years, my mind has been blown on this stuff. So the terrains of health and disease, well, just like you can't grow blueberries in an alkaline soil in your garden, only certain terrains or soils or conditions, like petri dishes in the laboratory, if you want to grow a bacterial culture, you need a bacterial sample. You want to culture it, you have to grow it in the proper petri dish medium that's for bacteria. Viral medium is different. It needs attenuated cells. If you don't have low energy cells, you can't grow viruses. If your cells aren't low energy, they have a shield of living water, of structured hexagonal millions of sheets of water that's actually a living battery that holds energy and makes that energy available to anything in contact with it to run metabolism. And fungi grow on dead matter. We know if we go in the forest, we say, look at the fungus growing on that side of the tree. Oh, that side of the tree must be dead. Well, same in the body. If we have dead matter that's not cleaning out, then fungus is going to help us break it down. I show algae here in the high energy terrain not because it grows in the body, but that it grows in nature in a high energy terrain. In the body, in high energy terrain, there's too much energy, and that energy is toxicity and allergy. It's stuff that we don't want. It's coming out the release valve in our sinuses and eyes because it can't get out the kidneys. So different diseases can only exist in those different terrains, not just the fungi, bacteria, viruses, but cancer is always in a low energy terrain, and it'll always grow in an area where there's already damage and toxicity, because scar tissue blocks the flow of circulation, energy, and information in that area. So it becomes a toxic waste dump. We have to restore the flow of energy, get the energy up. And in every case of spontaneous remission of cancer, It's over 3,000 cases on record. It's always in phase 2 terrain where that happens, where there's bacteria. In fact, hundreds of years ago, there was a 100% cure for cancer that was discovered, but they stopped using it because half of the people died of toxemia because they put in inoculated bacteria into the tumor. The tumor would lyse, it would break up into a liquid that would drain. If it drained out of the body through the skin, the person would heal. If it drained into the blood, they'd either be able to detoxify it or they wouldn't. But it was 100% cure of the tumor. So the problem with cancer is the toxicity, the state of the whole body. It has to be a whole person, whole body cure. In the process of healing, at the lowest levels of health, we have blocked regulation where the body doesn't respond. Even if we do the right things that we absolutely need to do for healing, we don't feel anything. When I was going blind in my 20s, I didn't feel any change for a year. I was removing amalgam fillings from my teeth that were a source of mercury toxicity. I was taking the remedies that tested according to my mentors, measures of my meridians. And finally, I had a healing crisis where I felt worse before I felt better. But then going through cleansing, it was all worth it. And I still have my vision 40 years later now. 25 years was what I had anticipated at that time. If I didn't do anything, I would be blind. So it's worth it. Healing is not for sissies, we like to say. And we also like the t-shirts that say, if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. So if you're younger, it's a good time to start. We also look at the embryological tissue layers. As the body grows from one cell to many, it forms in different layers. And as we detoxify the deeper layers, like the kidney and muscles that are on the deepest layer, the symptoms will move outward. And that's a clue. It's a sign when we're going through mixed regulation where some symptoms are improving and others are getting worse. It's like, oh, my headache is going away, but I have a little low back ache. Well, because what was here is now moving out through the kidneys, and it's a little irritating on the way, but we also like to say better out than in. So I call this whole process accelerated self-healing because, again, we're always healing, but what slows us down is we're missing particular things from the natural environment. We're nature deficient. We need material substances like phytonutrients. Like with macular degeneration, there's carotenoids that are specifically concentrated in the macula to protect the eye. They're not considered vitamins because we don't die without them and we don't have any acute symptoms, but we have chronic symptoms of going blind. Well, that's kind of a necessary, vision is necessary. So we formulated products that support all those phytobotanical extracts and concentrates, put them all into convenient capsules or powders or liquids. I've got the leading books on natural therapies for blinding eye diseases, and those are great, but they go into the individual nutrients and herbs and whatnot. And people, a lot of people have helped themselves with that, but now we can make it easier by having formulated our own products. And because we leave out all of the excipients, the unwanted chemicals that are necessary for high-speed mechanical machines to put the capsules together, those compounds they add, the stearates, form a biofilm on the nutrients and on the gut lining. So they actually impair our ability to get nutrients even from our diet. We're getting much better results now, like the man who got his driver's license back in 1 month. And there are just so many wonderful stories. But I'm going to be teaching a course. I'd like to invite you to get in touch with me, and I'll hook you up with that for free. I call it Wellness Whispering. It analyzes your voice. This is a way to get free access without an appointment, no charge or anything. Once a month or even once a week, if something's changing, you can tune in. This is just one page of about 14. They're all interactive, so you can click and read more and learn more about what is showing up in the hidden information in the frequencies in your voice, just giving a 10-second vocal sample through your cell phone or computer. No extra equipment, no cost. It's just a wonderful system developed by an acupuncturist from Australia and one of his patients who saved his life. And this is just part of our whole system, which I'll be teaching a more in-depth course later in this year. If you get on our mailing list, you'll know when that's happening. And look forward to hopefully seeing some of you there and maybe blowing your mind a few more times. So that's it, other than questions. And I'm looking on the side here. There's, based on your very extensive knowledge, what are the most impactful things we can do each day to improve our eyesight? Okay, great. So, wow. So how I work with people is individual. And so the most impactful things are what I call the essential remedies. And when they take those, they complete healing processes that have been on hold for years within 1 month. We find that reversal of degenerative changes is usually about 1 year of change for every 1 month of this type of support. So that's really the most impactful, but that's individual. So on a you know, they say you can only cure retail, but you can prevent wholesale. So the wholesale prevention things that we can do for eyesight specifically, well, you certainly don't want to strain your eyes, taking breaks from anything that's visually stressful. A blink is also a break that pumps the fluids of the eye, lymph drainage, and resets the muscles and relaxes. So if you're staring, that's a clue that you're stressing. If you feel strain, that's a clue that there's tightness in the muscles, tightness, fullness in the lymph, the flow of energy and information and material is backing up. So breath, if you're holding your breath, people become myopic or shallow breathers. So posture and breath and spatial awareness. If you're looking at a book or a computer screen or a cell phone, there's a whole visual spatial world that extends about 180 degrees and 90, 120 degrees, whatever it is vertically. When we're out of body, it's actually 360 degrees all the way around. But in the body, we're having an in-body experience. It's limited by the field of view of our nose and our brows and the retina, looking out through the pupil. So if you can remember the things outside of what you're focused on, outside of the screen, outside of the page, outside of the phone, as you're looking at the screen now, just think about, be aware of your breath. Can you breathe more deeply and more relaxed? At the same time, can you feel your feet on the floor? Can you feel your body? Scan around your body, feel all the parts of your body. And I call it what's the movement? The Occupy Wall Street movement. It's the Occupy Yourself movement. That's the first step before you try to occupy Wall Street. And your vision. So you're looking at me on the screen, let's say. What else are you seeing? And how aware of those things, how aware of that space were you? How aware can you be now when you're kind of dividing your attention? You're gazing more softly rather than looking hard. You're seeing rather than looking primarily. Just seeing is like taking in the whole space. You can see your nose. You can see maybe your eyebrows. I can see my hands moving out here in the side. So opening up your visual space perception. And it's not only two-dimensional like a postcard, it's also three-dimensional. Can you see the space behind the screen, the wall? Can you, in your mind's eye, can you envision the next room, the outdoors, the trees, the sky, here the ocean, a few blocks away, the palm trees? I can't see them with my biological eye, but I can see them with my mind's eye. So it's envisioning the space and then not only seeing it, but actually occupying it, being present. Like I said about the stars, what we see is us. What you see is you. But are you projecting it as though it's separate, as though it's this other thing, just an image? Or are you there? Is your presence there? So you can work on expanding your spatial presence. We talk about presence. Somebody walks into a room and we say, whoa, they have presence. Yes, they do. That's their spirit is larger. And our spirits can sense that. So expand your spiritual presence and using your senses, hearing, vision, or our external senses, that's the way there. So that's a big part of it, is how we use our eyes so that we're relaxed, we're present in our whole being. We're not just seeing with our eyeballs and our brain, we're seeing from the heart as the center. The heart is the integrator of everything. You know, studies on visual perception with slides, they'll show slides, and some of those slides are stressful, a snake, blood, a car accident, and others are just relaxing, nature, non-invasive. But when there's a stress, the body reacts before the slide is shown. And they've used high-speed computers so they can determine that the body reacts before the computer selects a random number with a random number generator to determine which slide is shown. So how does that happen? And it doesn't come from the brain, it comes from the heart. The heart is the first to react. So our heart is transtemporal. It's our spirit center, the center of all the chakras, as we started with the heart chakra and went to the throat and the power chakra and the third eye and the second chakra, and then the connecting back to the non-local, which was our source with the metal element, where we breathe in the non-local minerals for building our spirit, and we're connecting back to the non-local, the divine spirit source and the earthly source that we're connected to or grounded to, and you know, the survival chakra, our survival not of our spirit, but yes, our survival of our bio-body suit, which allows us time and choice and feedback to grow and develop our spirit body. So that's a long answer. and avoid sugar, avoid junk food, eat real food. You know, you probably know most of the things that I could possibly say on how to help our eyes. Our eyes don't get sick in a totally healthy body that's functioning totally in a healthy way with, you know, our conscious choices. And it doesn't get well in a body that's sick. So that's why we work on the whole person. We ask the body what it's trying to heal, rather than, well, here, your eye is the problem, we have to heal that, and we know carotenoids help that part, so take these forever. Well, I find it might need a different carotenoid this month and next month to keep them separate. They actually compete with each other. If you're taking a complex of carotenoids that has, especially with beta carotene in it, you're not going to get anything but the beta carotene. But if you separate and you have your, you know, your lutein separate from your mesozeaxanthin, you're going to absorb the one that's there without competition. What else do we have? Where can we go for the voice thing? Yes. So if you go to, you can contact me, or you can go to our website, wellnesswhispering.com, and get guidance there. You can go on Facebook to our Wellness Whispering group and join there. There's a little chat bot that can help walk you through those things. Wellness Whispering will get you hooked up. You can get a free voice scan and see what your hidden information in your voice is telling you about what your body is trying to do right now. And there's they have wonderful remedies that are infoceuticals, information drops you put in water. So if you can drink water, you can take the medicine that's associated with that system as well. You can order it right on their website, or you can order it from us if you're in the States. That makes sense. We can ship it along with anything else you need. Great.
That's it for questions.
Okay. Well, it's been a real pleasure. And any other questions? We've got time, I guess. And we'll be in our booth, try to figure out how to do, open up the interactive video and chat and all in there for a little while after. So feel free to join us. Thank you for showing up and sticking with us.
Thank you, Sam.
And thank you, Dr. Sam Byrne, my old friend, my good friend. He's a good one.